Pam, thank you for joining us at the Pro Speaker Summit, where we're going to focus on product. And the reason that we decided to do this summit, as I think about speaking, the best speakers I know, there's a business underneath the speaking. It's not just, oh, I just get paid to perform like I'm Beyonce. No, there's some other business underneath. And with you running Speakers Magazine, I wanted to talk a little bit about what you've learned over the years of running the magazine and working with a whole bunch of speakers. I'm talking like a
Yeah.
lot of speakers individually, but also how you've built the business and how you use speaking to grow not only the magazine but your PR practice. So can you give us the origin story? How did you turn
Yes.
into this super
Thank you,
PR
Ron.
hero?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. First of all, this is seeing your growth and progress in this whole speaker realm is definitely encouraging and inspiring. I'm glad we got connected. And how it all came about, the origin story, I started out really as a literary publicist. So this is about 25 years ago. And a lot of the publishing houses hired me. Christian publishing houses, my company's Ministry Marketing Solutions. So it was Zondervan, Thomas Nelson, Harvest House, Harrison House, Moody Press. I sat on the board for Moody Press, all the literary. And so what they would do is they would ask me, Destiny Image, they would ask me to do the PR and hire me to do the PR for their African American preachers. So we did that for maybe, this was before really self-publishing became a big deal. So about 2005-ish or so, a lot of preachers realized that they could make more money if they published the books themselves. And so, in order for books to sell, you have to speak. So a lot of my authors were preachers. That's where it really started. I think that was the genesis of it, because the publishing houses, whether it was Thomas Nelson, Random House, any of the houses, they realized if they had a large platform of speaking, they could sell some books. They could move some books. So they were moving these books, preaching, and then eventually the publishing houses were like, hey, we got enough of these preachers. And a lot of other people started really publishing their own books as well. And they realized they can make their own money, really more money, by publishing themselves. So self-publishing became a thing. It wasn't kind of like, oh, they self-publish their book, but it's like, no, I can self-publish my book and make money. So really the whole part of it, then it switched. It's not so much of me really promoting books and authors, but those speakers who wrote books. And that's where the flip came. And that probably was within, let's say, the last 10 years, especially with self-publishing being a thing. So it's real easy to publish a book, but it's not real easy to sell a book. And so that's where the speaking really came in. And so in order to have that platform, I would, as a publicist, help them build that brand and the platform in the media. That was the origin story. My background is in journalism. I worked for the Detroit Free Press for about 10 years. I worked for the Salvation Army for about 10 years before I started my company. Ooh, I've aged myself. So you add those numbers up, like 10, 10, and then 25. Okay, yeah, I'm up there roughly. And that was really like the main thing, to making sure that those authors who are speakers, whether it's George Fraser or it is Letitia Nicole, that they are writing books, speaking, and selling the books. And out of the books, it's a whole nother other products. But that's the origin story.
I think that's interesting. And our target audience is 55 years old, right? Most people don't know that speaking is like we think of the creators and influencers. Creators and influencers, in my mind, are people under 40, right?
Yeah.
Because if you talk to somebody who's a lawyer or a doctor, you call them an influencer, they can be like, I'm not an influencer. You're kind of insulting their level of expertise, right? So when you say you're aging yourself, no, you're talking amongst friends. You're talking amongst friends
We've been out here.
because,
We were the OGs.
yeah. I mean, we're the people with the expertise, right?
Mhm, mhm.
So I think that, this is a very comfortable place because they have written books about what they've done. They do have the results to show what they've done. They're building businesses around that 20, 30 years of knowledge,
Mhm.
right? They didn't just figure it out last week with ChatGPT. the library, the Dewey Decimal System was Chat GPT for us, right? So, no, I think that that's a very credible thing because it shows that the advice that you're going to give about what you did, it was earned. It wasn't
Mhm.
just Googled last week from somebody else's
No, no.
course, right?
Now the problem comes, I think, is that people feel that speaking is a new hustle. So they may have a job and they just say, "Hey, I work Monday through Friday, and on the weekend I could just I could just, speak on the weekend and make, a couple of $1,000, $5,000 on the weekend." And that became really, I started seeing a lot of people really just only wanted to do speaking. Just push me out there as a speaker. And they had a job during the week and they had some experience, but what do you speak on? And they didn't know. They was like, I'm gonna speak on whatever they're speaking on. They're speaking on. I'm gonna speak on that. I could do that. I'm gonna speak on leadership, DEI, personal development, whatever. And I was like, but you need something else. This is just your speaking is really your hook of something else that's more. It's part of a business model. Just like I said, I was a literary publicist and they had publishing houses hired me for these authors who had books. Now, they also had churches. They also had other things. So they weren't just like, I'm just writing a book and that's all I'm going to do. That's my only stream of income. No, they always had multiple streams of income. Where I think the misconception now is that people think that speaking is something that I can just get paid $5,000 every weekend for 4 weeks. I'm doing good. Well, that's really a dream. That's a fantasy. That doesn't really happen, especially if you're just starting out and no one knows you. Now, if you're Michelle Obama or you have a name recognition, yes, you can command those type of fees, thousands and thousands of dollars. But she has a brand already. So I want people to understand that how do you build a brand or how you build a platform? If you're a speaker, takes time. In the interim, you need some products. You need a business model of how you're going, how a speaker needs a business model. It's not just speaking. It's not just having the gift of gab, which a lot of my clients do. They have a gift of gab. They can go on television. They do really well. Well, actually, they have media training and they do really well. But even if they leave the studio, someone goes to your website, they're not going to hire you to speak. They probably want to buy some products first. So yeah, that's a fallacy of people thinking that, yeah, speaking is this great way where I could just make a ton of money really, really fast. And listen, I haven't seen that happen. I have clients definitely who, Letitia Nicole, for instance, she's a person that is getting a lot of speaking engagements and she speaks for ministries. So she gets a lot of ministry engagements. I have a lot of other people where they do their own events, right? They do their own events and then they make money from that. So they'll do events. Sherwood does an event, SpeakerCon. So you could do quarterly events, you could do yearly events and make a lot of money. But even when they have those events, Ron, they sell from the stage. So it's not just making money from the event, not just from the ticket from the event, $200 or $300 or $1,000 to come to their event. They also sell from the stage. Darnell is a really good, I have a picture of her. Darnell, she does really, really good about selling from the stage at her own event. So sell them into a program. Program is $25,000, $36,000 for the year. But they also paid $1,000 to come to the event. That's how speakers make money.
100%. I think that dream of, hey, this tragic thing happened to me, so somebody will pay me to tell how I overcame it, came from people that were just taking advantage of as a speaker coach. They were saying, hey, buy my course, and you got it. I call it speaker knighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Such and such told me I had a great message. So they got knighted as a speaker.
Yes, yes. They got ignited as a speaker. Maybe they heard Les Brown. And listen, Les has been in the game for a long time. So his signature line, you got to be hungry, inspired everybody. He's like, oh my God, I want to be like Les Brown. I want to be like Lisa Nichols. I want to do that. That's what I want to do. It's like looking at someone who's on Oprah and says, I want to be on her couch or I want to be on Super Soul Sunday. you don't know how long they've been at the game doing that. And it's really, it looks easy, but you don't see the steps in between. You don't see all the things that are going on in the background. You don't see the branding that's taking place. You don't see the amount of emails that they have, or the amount of followers that they have online, or you don't see how many books they've sold over the years, or you don't see all the rejections they got either. That's the other parts you don't ever see.
100%. So, what are some of the product mix that you've seen your speakers have?
Oh my
You mentioned
God.
that they have books, but what's some of the different product mix?
Yes, I always tell people they can pull a lot of products out of the book. So, one of the main things I always tell my clients is that your book is your hook for media, but also your book is your basis for your content marketing and your products. So, if you have a book, and I love books, but not everybody likes to read. Not, I mean, they buy books and may not read books. So if you buy a book, maybe they don't read it, but if you have a course that they could go through where it's video, they'll probably go for that more, because now you're watching it, you're experiencing it. So from the book, you can create a course. From the book, you can create a membership program where they're paying to be with you monthly. And, obviously that's kind of like the main thing that you see with a lot of different products. Speaker Hub is kind of like a monthly membership. So they'll be a part of a membership. They also event marketing is really big. Obviously they can have their own retreats. They can have their own conferences. They can do their own workshops. A lot of them will take their book, package it, and then sell them in bulk with maybe workshops to a corporation. There's so many options to doing things. A lot of for content, they could take their book and then create podcasts. And from the podcast, people can understand a little bit more about what they do. Like you were saying, the lady named Nicole, she's an attorney. Maybe she does a book and it's about estate planning. And so maybe from that book, she can take that book and then create a podcast. From the podcast, people will then come to her and know, if I need estate planning, I heard this lady's podcast. Now, they may have bought their book, but they didn't read the book, but everybody will flip open their phone and watch a YouTube video. So I always say that start with the book, and then out of the book, you can pull out probably 12 to 20 different products besides a workbook. The workbook, people don't like workbooks as much unless you're going to guide them through it, because nobody likes to work. So even though it says, oh, I can have a workbook. Well, they bought the book. They didn't even read the book. You think they're going to do the work in the workbook? So anyway, so I always tell people, I said, so you want to make it more interactive. You want to make it a workshop. You want to even make it maybe a podcast series. Maybe you can make it a webinar series. But the main thing, if you speak, that is your superpower. So you need to figure out how you're going to use that the most, whether you're going to do it in front of an audience of a church, a corporation, a nonprofit, sell it, sell the particular thing overseas, about that, right? Not just in the United States, but overseas. That way you can go digital, you can do it overseas and have a series of, so yeah, I've seen people really make the most money by experiential marketing, meaning from events, because people love to be in the energy. Because you're a speaker, they love to be around that person who is speaking, the energy of that speaker. So anyone who's on the cover of Speakers Magazine, they have had an event, whether it's Kamika, she has an event, Cheryl Wood has an event. So that's where I find they make the most money, when they host their own events. Not only do people pay for the ticket, but maybe sponsors for the event. Then they also have products at the event. You say, oh, I went to the event, been there, got the t-shirt. So yeah, they sell other kind of products like that, little souvenirs. They also have at a certain point in time, they will have a program, a yearly program, where people will work with them one-on-one for maybe a year, and it's $24,000, $36,000, $48,000 a year. So even like when Les Brown speaks, but he hosts once a year a speaking event where he does speaker training. So people pay to come to the event, but he also trains them for the rest of the year as well. So I find that most speakers need a signature event, just like they need a signature book. So your signature book, your signature event are really by far the best things to think that through of what that's going to be and what that will look like. And then from there, you can spin off and do other things and go to other markets. But I have found that most of them have had events that make the money, and getting sponsorships for those events are really, really huge. And it creates content for their social as well. But one of the main things is that they need to build their brand by doing PR, because no one's going to come to anybody's event if they never heard of it. So that's where the media comes in. That's why I created Speakers Magazine, to really give them more of that bolster of the PR for that as well.
No, I think that makes sense. I think the live event thing is very interesting because we see the highlights of it, but we don't see the work, right? Like we don't see none of the work that goes into trying to pull that thing off. You know, what's been your experience with that? I've seen photos of you have those cards, and I've seen people with the 6-foot card. The card's like this big, and they're walking around with the card with the Speakers Magazine. They trying to sneak it on the plane.
Yes.
What's the origin story behind those cards?
Well, the origin, I don't know if you can kind of see that. The origin of it is, you could kind of see that right there where I'm holding this. So that's Stacey NC Grant. She's actually now the president of the Zetas International. But her event every single year in New York, she would have a Faithpreneur conference. That was her signature event. She held it in honor of her grandmother who passed. So she would have this event. I think she's been on the cover like 5 times, because we've been around 8 years. So she's been on the cover 5 times. So I would travel from my town to Detroit, help her with the social media, the PR on the ground, but also I would have this big blow up of the cover as well. Again, obviously this part of the setup of her event, but also going through the airport with it. People are like, well, who was that? She's a speaker. Yes, she is. And so it just really gives more of a notoriety, a celebrity of who this person is on the cover. Everybody's hailing it. Everybody's looking at it. People are asking questions about it. They'll say, well, who was Dr. Stacey NC Grant? I said, oh, she's a speaker. Here's her magazine. And you can read about her and her other speakers in the issue. You know, so those are the things. And that just really came about because at the event they have that's part of when I do the interviews, you know, for them live, that will be in the background. And so it was all part of that, part of intentional, a part of that branding. But yeah, and I tell them, I says, okay, when you leave, you're going to take this with you as well. And you're going to see people going to say, oh, what do you speak on? And they have their sound bites. It's like, I don't speak on anything. I just speak on a particular topic for particular people. So yeah, that's what that was about.
How important has you mentioned branding several times? How important is, all things being equal, right? I speak on business. This person speaks on business, but this person has been in 5 magazines. I haven't been on anything. What's the likelihood of them getting chosen over me because they have this brand authority in the press where I'm just Ron, I've done my work, but nobody knows about it. I haven't been
Yeah.
publicly recognized. How
Right.
valuable is that?
It's important for several reasons. One, you want people to come to your event, and they want to come if there's a notoriety about you. So if they Google who this person is or they've seen them, I want to come. Meeting planners want to have speakers that bring an audience, that have some name recognition. So by being in magazines, newspapers, radio, podcasts, that helps build your authority. It gives you Google juice. It makes you Googleicious. So when people Google you, it's like, oh, okay. It's like I always look at an event and I'll see all the speakers they have lined up, and it's like, oh, I've heard of that one. And why have they heard of that one? Not just because of Facebook, but because they've seen them maybe on the local station, or they've seen them in maybe the African American newspaper. Like Rodney C. Burris has been on the front page of the Afro, which is one of the largest, one of the largest Black-owned newspapers in the country. And he's on the front page of that, on the business section. So I always say that you can even get the media and then send it out to potential conference planners that you would like to speak for one day. So it's not like, hey, here's my one sheet, which is cool. You need to have that. But here's an article that was recently written about me in Essence. Here's an article that was recently written about me in, CEO Weekly. Here's an article that was written about me, or here's a magazine I can mail you. I was recently featured in Speakers Magazine. It just gives them a level of like, oh, okay, so now they have a little bit more credibility. There's some third party endorsement going on here. And so now I feel a little bit more comfortable about inviting them in, and they can sell you to someone else. They can recommend, refer you when they know that someone else has talked about you outside of you talking about yourself. You still have to talk about yourself. You still have to pitch yourself, but you now have more ammunition, I guess you would say. Because if there's someone that does the work and there's no media receipts for them, and then there's someone who has done the work and there is media receipts, the person who has the media receipts, they have the validation, they have that credibility, and they'll pick them. It's just simple. It's like, okay, they're equal. I'm going to pick this person. I'm going to read their long form story. Oh, I like this story. I like what people said. It's not the website, because people know the website is your sales tool. If you are in some kind of media outlet, it's written in journalistic style, AP style, Associated Press style, that makes more of a difference than just your website copy, which is basically copywriting for advertising, versus a story, which is in newspapers and magazines.
No, that makes sense, because I think sometimes people overlook that. They say, well, I'm good. Well, but if nobody knows that you're good, then if nobody's recognizing that, I think
Yeah.
it's it could be almost a waste. You're not leveraging it as much as you could.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask another question about not just PR, but I'm a speaker, right? I'm going to do an event. I'm going to hire someone to do PR. What do you think is the other mistakes, or some mistake that a speaker would make in trying to get on their first few stages? Because what we found is that most of our speakers have done less than 5 gigs in total.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they're still trying to get that momentum to stand out. Should they speak for free? Should they be asking for as much as they can get? What's your thoughts? What are some of the mistakes that you see speakers make?
One of the things that, and again, it goes back to that whole like mystique of, oh, I want to get $5,000, $7,500, $10,000 a gig. That will happen over time after practice. Les Brown, Willie Jolly, George Fraser, they were speaking, and I will say this, at the very beginning for free. Now, of course, that was a long time ago, but they got better as they were making more and more of these quote unquote free engagements. They were speaking at places where other people heard them. And maybe they did speak for free, but maybe the executive from Ford Motor Company was in the audience and say, hey, I want you to come in and do our training. So you just never know. It depends on the audience. And if this is your only source of income and you do need to only take paid speaking gigs, it's going to be rough for you. I'm just going to say it's going to be rough for you, because no one knows you, and no one no one hires speakers that they've never heard of. So I always tell people, I said, continue to work on your brand, continue to maybe nominate yourself for awards. People love award-winning speakers, award-winning of whatever the award is. You can win awards, award of Amazon bestseller, continue to put all those credibility markers into a treasure chest, so that eventually you will be able to say, oh, but look at all the things that I've done. Look at all of my receipts, so to speak. So you want to, I always tell people, awards, getting in media, getting on stages. If you're going to speak, do it often. I promise you, George Fraser, and I learned this from him, Willie Jolly as well, they spoke a lot for free. They spoke at high schools. They spoke at Willie Jolly will tell you junior achievement. One of my mentors, he said he spoke at junior achievement, but he was getting better as he went. Now, you can just hold out if you want to just wait for the paid speaking gigs. That's fine. But I always say, if you're a real truly speaker and you have a message to share it as often as you can. Now, don't go into deficit with it. Don't fly to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and you live in Detroit, speaking for free, but make it make sense for you in your situation. You will never know how you impact people, get the testimonials from people who have heard you, tell them, get different products so that I don't know if I should say it, but get a product so that people can recommend and refer you, and you have the little, uh, you know, uh, I guess you would say source where people will say, oh, okay, well, someone heard them speak and they said this about them. So you want to capture that content if you are speaking for free. And don't even say it's for free. It's like, I'll waive my fee. Okay. Because you want to waive your fee. And I would say join organizations and things like that and network with other speakers, because speakers sometimes will recommend you for an event that they did maybe last year. So if it's Willie Jolly and say, hey, Willie spoke at this event. And he says, we really loved you. You spoke at the National Association of Minority Development, whatever. We really liked you. He says, well, you know what? My buddy such and such, Simon Bailey, he's a speaker. You would love him too. There's no skin off their nose if they spoke and they got a check to recommend a friend or a colleague for the following year. That is something but you have to network with other speakers to know if you're in that game to be recommended. And I find that most of the speakers who are booked from friends or other speaker colleagues who have recommended them. They see that they're out there, they're doing the work, they're building the brand, they're writing the books, they're creating the courses, they're doing all the things. They just need a break. And so you have to show up and be friendly with people and network with people. That's really one of the main things that I always tell people. I said, people will not just all of a sudden like, oh, I'm going to pick this person, but it's from word of mouth. Even though I'm a publicist by trade, word of mouth is the best form of advertising. It really is. So they know that is nothing that they're paying for, that they're just really recommending and referring someone. So I say network with other speakers and let them say, hey, you spoke at such and such event 2 years ago. Can I have the contact of the person that was doing the hiring? I'd like to throw my hat in the ring. And they'll say, oh, no problem. I'll call them for you. That's what a friend would say.
So how many speakers have you interviewed since you've had Speakers Magazine?
Well, you know what? It was actually before Speakers Magazine because I had a podcast, Lone Chemical on Chocolate Pages. So I was interviewing people like Reverend Run, Kirk Franklin, Yolanda Adams, CC Winans. This is like way back. They were authors, Chocolate Pages. That's what books so good you can eat them. But I was interviewing them way back then because remember I was a literary publicist. So I was interviewing probably at that point, probably 300 or something different authors. Some were big names, some weren't. I think the one that Damon Wilson, he had a book. There was just so many different ones and things like that. My very first podcast where I interviewed an author, and he was with Thomas Nelson, I believe, was Rudy Rasmus. People don't remember Rudy Rasmus, but he was Beyonce's pastor. He married Beyonce and Jay-Z. They grew up at the Knowles grew up in that particular church. So Rudy Rasmus was one of the first people I interviewed on Chocolate Pages. But Speakers Magazine, 8 years old, probably about 300 or so different speakers as well. And they have the podcast on YouTube. They can go to Speakers Magazine and they can use those podcasts and send that to a television station and say, here's how I sound on the interview. Because they need to know how they're going to sound.
All right. So that's a lot of people to get to know and to see how they run their business. In order to write an article, you can't just make up something. You got to talk to them and figure out what they're doing. So if you had to build the perfect speaker, knowing what you know about speaking in 2025, right? So you got to take a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of flour, some cinnamon, some sugar, stir it all up. What are the first ingredients you would put in?
I think the first ingredient is really making sure that they have the goods. So I'm a publicist. I promote you, but you have to have the goods. You have to have worked on your craft. You have to be really good. You have to have a message. And I call it the it factor. And I can see it immediately. That's what I have a gift for. I can see if they have an it factor. And if they have the it factor, we can polish it up and really, send them out into the world and they can become a megastar. But they have to have that it factor first, meaning that they they're engaging, they're inspiring, that when people hear them, they have maybe a sense of humor, they have a stage presence, they just have that it factor. I can't explain it, but I remember seeing one of my clients, her name was Ty Adams, and she wrote a book and I put her on a television station, Christian television station, and she spoke on that show. And when I was looking at her and I said, wow, she's as good as Juanita Bynum. And I really did. I kept seeing her. I was like, wow, she was just passionate about her message. And a few years later, she met Juanita Bynum and she was speaking at Woman Thou Art Loose with TD Jakes. I saw it probably 5 years before she did it because she had that it factor. Same thing with Ken Brown. You know, he when he wrote his book, his From Welfare to Faring Well, he was a McDonald's owner operator because I used to do PR for McDonald's. And he was an owner operator. He said, I want to write a book. I helped him write the book. We start putting him out there. And he started traveling with Dennis Kimbrough. He loved Dennis Kimbrough. And he and Dennis Kimbrough became really good friends, and they still do things to this day together. And TD Jakes and, you know, at that time, Dr. Miles Monroe. So a lot of them, I guess you would say, they'd have to have that it factor. So when the McDonald's owner operator says, hey, you know, I want to write a book or I want to speak, I have to like really look and see what under the hood, like what is it that's really their motive. So I guess to say their heart motives have to be pure. After that, we build everything out. You just have to work on your craft, be good at what you do, and have a pure heart motive why you want to do it. It can't be like, it's the new hustle. I just want to make a bunch of money running my mouth. That ain't gonna last. It just won't.
All right. So they have the it factor. What's the second ingredient? So you said have the goods, as you said it, right? They gotta have the goods. What's the next ingredient?
I would say, like I said, the book is really important because now it's like a container of the things that you would like to speak about. Say if it's 12 chapters, now you have 12 quote unquote signature speeches. So you have the book. Obviously, you're building out the website, and I don't want people to get all hung up in all that. But you build a website just basically so you can navigate it, build a list, build an online brand. You know, making sure that you're using the right tools to build the online brand, obviously a photo shoot and all of that, obviously a speaking reel. So one of the things I do every year is I do Speak, Sell, Shine so I can pull together the content for people. They need photos, not just headshots, but they need brand photos, photos of them speaking, photos of them interacting with an audience. It's like a TEDx style talk before they even get to a TEDx talk, you know, which is the holy grail, right? They now have a professional speaking reel. They interview with the media. They meet the media at the National Press Club. They have pictures of them at the National Press Club. I spend time with them, talking to them about what it is that their messaging is about, helping them define their niche, their audience, and then really making sure that they have the connections with the media and they know how to pitch. So it's called Speak, Sell, Shine, focusing on selling, not just to shine, because everybody can look good, but they don't know how to sell. They still have to pitch themselves. So really the main things that people like, I want to speak. It's like, okay, well, you have a speaker reel, you have a one sheet, you have a media kit. No, I don't. Do you have a bio? No, I don't. It's like, oh my God. Or they have a bio. It sounds like obituary. So we help them do that. We help them put all of the, what I call the marketing assets together so that they can look like they're $1 million, even though they're just starting out, but they do need to have that book as a first step. And I said the book just really gives them that credibility, because even if you write the book, and it doesn't have to be a bestseller, but you could at least send it to a prospective client. And that's something that they can have and hold and share and recommend and refer to someone else. If the book is good. When I work with Ken, his book was good because I set him with a ghostwriter, Dexter Jenkins, who was our cover for April. His book was, I set him up with the right ghostwriter so that the book is good. So Dexter has been on Sirius XM. He's been, Alfred Edmond gave him an endorsement, who's from Black Enterprise. So he's been in different spots. He's been on Rashawn McDonald's show, which is good friends with Steve Harvey, on his show. And actually Rashawn came and spoke at his event. So, but it took a while. It wasn't like he knew what he knew, but he didn't have all the assets. So now he has all the assets. He's been in realestatetoday.com because he's a wealth Creator is the name of his book, The Wealth Creator Blueprint. So it really takes time to really pull it together. But if you have someone that can walk you through all those things, because people think I just need a photo shoot. Well, I give people a photo shoot planner, because now it's not just a photo shoot, but it has to coincide with your brand. So this photo shoot planner you have to fill out, you have to think about, okay, I just need to do a video. Okay, well, no, we need to create your speaker reel, and this is what it needs to include, as well as interviews inserted in that reel of you being interviewed by a real journalist. That we put that together. Oh, I just need this, a bio. Put in Chat GPT. Okay, well, no, this is not going to work. We need to put a little bit more of your uh, voice into this particular bio so that it works. And then maybe sometimes you have two different one sheets, one for corporate audience, maybe one for ministry audience, maybe one for women, so we look at the whole thing that is really involved. But you start where you start. I mean, you may not have all these things when you first start out, but at the very least, you do need to have really professional photos. I have people that come to me all the time. Oh, I want to be in Speakers Magazine. But listen, you need to have real photos. Okay, this is a real photo. It's a professional photo. These I actually was on site with Dr. Stacey NC Grant for these photos. Now, some people, Erin Simone, obviously she's a superstar, but she's founded the Fearless Fund, so she gave me a professional photo. If you don't have a professional photo, we can't even start to work with you yet, because if meeting planners say send me a photo, you can't send them something that was a seatbelt selfie in your car. You got to send them a real photo. So yeah, that's kind of like a basic thing. But even before they get a photo, I always tell them fill out the photo shoot planner so that we can know what type of photos, what type of props you need. I always tell people that if you're doing a photo, for me, one of my props may be this, because I'm a publicist. Like, oh, okay, so now it's like I spread the word. Or I'm a podcaster, maybe because this is a prop here. I bring that out. So I'll take certain props to my photo shoots for my clients because it fits them. And I even have props for myself. I have like a little magic wand, because people always say, oh, you help people, with the media. You're kind of like our fairy media godmother, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's corny, but people remember it. It's better than a basic like headshot that looks like a driver's license. Nobody wants that.
Oh, that makes sense. I like the speaker of that megaphone, that plastic megaphone
Mm-hmm.
that you had. We should get those and give those away. We should get orange ones, because it's our Speaker Hub logo is the man with the megaphone.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, so we'll probably get some of those made up
Yep.
for and give them away to different speakers in
I
our.
love props. I really do. They really just help bring out the personality of the person. Because, like you said, in a sea of speakers, what's going to be different? Looking at the photos, you want to know what's different. What will make someone stop to scroll?
Yeah, it makes sense. So they have the it factor. They've written a book. They've been packaged well. That was kind of the third part that bled into the book. They've been packaged well with great photos, great headshots. They have some PR coverage. Is there anything else that's
They have
missing?
PR. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Is there anything else that we're missing
It's this
for the
thing where I
beginning
call it
speaker?
like the
Because
thought. They need to demonstrate their thought leadership. They may be an expert, but they need to write articles. And so I'm a journalism person, so they need to write, and you can use Chat GPT, but make sure it has your voice. I mean, because I can tell something that's Chat GPT a mile away. I really can. But most people can now because everybody's using it so much. But you need to have some thought leadership. So if you are a teacher, maybe you're an edutech or any of the education type of leadership magazines, or speaking at different conferences that are within a small niche. They may not be thousands of people, but it shows thought leadership because of an area of a niche that you pick, and you are really dominating that. Whether you write articles on LinkedIn, you're developing a database of people who are interested in what you have to say. So that's where thought leadership is important. That's why the book is the first stopping point, because now it kind of helps you streamline all of your thoughts into an organized effort, but you can always expand on it and make it relevant. And then you have hooks every single month, maybe from a press release. I always tell people you should write a press release every single month. It's like, oh my God. Yeah, when I was a publicist, I wrote releases like 2 or 3 times a week. So yeah, you can find something to write about at least once a month because there's so many different hooks of different days. And if you're a news junkie, you know what kind of things the media likes. So you write press releases on that. And that's it. And if people can't, that's what we help them with, because a press release is really the love language for the journalist. So you have to know how to pitch that and write those on a regular. On a regular. Because people wonder, like, well, why do some people get media and I don't? Because you don't speak the love languages to the journalists. You don't put out a release or send them the right pitch.
Oh, I get it. So, no, I mean, that's a good starter kit for any speaker that's out there, because I could think of a lot of speakers that may have one of those, right? They may have professional photos because that was fun. That's
Yeah.
all they got, right? They can tell their story because they lived it.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a big difference between I've been talking all my life and I've been speaking all my life. And just because we've been talking all of our lives doesn't mean that we're great storytellers of our own stories a lot of times. So I think that having some type of coaching or going to different events like Speak, Sell, Shine, or learning to get published or interviewed by professional media, I mean, it's a
Mm-hmm.
skill. It isn't something that you just, well, I answered the question. No, you didn't. you you didn't answer any of the questions that I
Language
asked
is
you. You know,
everything. Yeah, it
one
really
hundred
is.
percent.
It really is. I would say a lot of people who want to, if they're not getting booked to speak, and they do have to practice, tape yourself on a Zoom, watch your video, critique yourself, watch how many ums. That's what I said. Maybe go to Toastmasters or something like that because they count your ums. You can make sure that you're always working on the craft. Watch the best speakers and see what they do. Watch Willie Jolly, watch Les Brown, watch Lisa Nichols, watch, all of those that you admire that are good speakers. And I say, don't imitate them, but just see why people love to pay them the amount of money that they do. And Toastmasters is free. You can find a Toastmasters group, find a one you like, but do that, or join Black Speakers Network. Like I said, network with other speakers, because that's a way where people recommend and refer you. And also NSA is another one that you want to join as well, or Black NSA if you're African American. Well, you don't have to be African American, join Black NSA, but be around those that are in the industry. If you were going to go to medical school, you'll start hanging around people in the medical industry. If you're going to be in the speaking industry, start hanging around people in the speaking industry. It's not just like a one off, like, oh, I'm a speaker, and you don't hang around people in the industry. You'll never be taken seriously. So I always tell people to make sure you're a part of those groups. I'm in NABJ. I'll be speaking at the National Association of Black Journalists event in August. I'm part of Beepers, Black Public Relations Society of America. I'm part of PRSA, Public Relations Society of America. So I'm part of the industry. Those are important. So if you don't have those credibility markers that you're part of the industry, it's like, are you really part of it, or are you just kind of like a one-off? So if you say you want to be a speaker, then you're going to be a part of these groups. And I always tell people, I said, if nothing else, be in Speakers Magazine. It's really so cheap and it stays there forever. It's not like I put you in there one magazine. It's on the website forever. But when people Google you, it's another credibility marker that adds to your resume. And I always tell people, I said, you need those many things, because if they are comparing apples to apples, then what is it that's going to make your apple different? You have these different credibility markers that are part of your toolkit. And I find that most people don't want to spend the time or the money to really make that difference. And so they kind of just always are at the bottom of the totem pole, whereas other people are moving up the totem pole because they invested in learning, webinars like this, part of the Speaker Hub, part of BSN. They're investing in it, and those make a difference, because it's not just like, oh, I speak a lot, and so people are going to find out about me and call me because they're going to go to my website. No, no. You can ask any speaker, like, when was the last time they got a speaking gig and how they got it. They will tell you that it was from not what they know, but who they know.
Yeah, I think relationships are super duper 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 duper
Mm-hmm.
important.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that, over the years, and it's easy to keep your head down, like work, 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 work. But I think that sometimes you have to figure out what your weaknesses are and then get them a little bit better, right? And if speaking is a lonely business. And if you're a speaker that has put out the facade that I'm this big bad wolf, I'm this speaker that gets this, if it's not true, you will hide from everybody else because you don't want them to find you out.
Mm.
And I would talk with some people they would say, "Oh, I'm this entrepreneur, I'm this." And I would say, "Okay, cool." But they had never heard of me because I never was hanging out networking with the entrepreneurs. I was just working. But I would ask them very basic questions. And instantly I would know that they didn't know what they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay. But I find that happens in the speaking industry also
Yeah.
because we fake it till we make it a lot of times. We're like, no, I'm this. I was talking to a young lady and I asked her, I said, what's your speaking fee? And she said, $7,500. I said, great. Well, I've learned to ask a follow-up question to that. Right. Okay. So what was the average that you got paid at your last 3 gigs? $1,500. Okay, cool.
Yeah, but 15.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfectly
So
fine. I didn't even say anything. I said, okay, so is 7,500 what you've gotten paid before, or is that your aspirational fee?
that's
Well,
her
I mean, I was
aspiration.
told by my coach that I should just state what I get and then I can negotiate down from there.
Okay.
And I'm like,
I have a
I don't
problem.
know about that.
I have a problem with these speaking coaches. I really do. This has become the new hustle. I'm gonna just say it right here. It's just become the new hustle. They speak, they not speaking, so now I'm gonna teach you how to speak. It's like what? What is that? Now, like I said, Les Brown can do it because people were asking him to mentor them. But
He's
these
Michael
other
Jordan of speaking.
right, but these other people out here, they ain't doing what they teaching you that you should do. It's like not right. So anyway, but that's we live in a world where people can put up a website about anything. Okay. So and then ChatGPT make it so easy. Or people can go to Canva or now we got AI. So I just tell people you've got to put in the work. You just said that the Michael Jordan of speaking, Michael Jordan practice. He went from zero to hero because he put in the work. So there's nothing that is going to take away that you've got to put in this work. You've got to make the investment if you really, really want it. Now, what happens in the speaking game, there's a lot of people that say, "Oh, I don't want it that bad," and they drop out and they go find something else. They go sell real estate or whatever they want to do, find another little side hustle. But maybe they become a content creator or influencer. But if you want to speak, you've got to put in those reps. You've got to speak, you got to network, you got to get PR, you've got to get the marketing assets, you've got to have the brand, you've got to get the book, you got to do the courses, you have to, at a certain point in time, I guess you do need a coach, but don't get a coach that's just going to tell you you need to charge this amount of money and they not even getting that money.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it all. I mean, I've seen it all, and I just say, you know what, we want to be a source of truth
Yeah.
at Speaker Hub, and that's why we put on events like this so that people
Yeah.
can come in and learn from people that have actually lived it. Everybody who speaks here, they didn't pay to speak at the conference. They're speaking based on my relationship with them, and I know that they have the goods. So how do people take the next steps with you? If someone's watched this for the last 49 minutes, they're like, you know what? She's down to earth. I get what she's doing. She understands the business, understands what I need to do to put myself in a better position from a PR perspective. How am I showing up? How are people finding me? Am
Mm-hmm.
I Google-licious? I think that's a word that you used on here
Yes.
a little while ago. How do they find more about Pam and take the next steps with you so
I
that they can
always tell
speak, sell,
people,
shine?
thank you, Ron. I always tell people if they can take it, they can make it. I am going to be honest with you uh, and let you know about the things you need to work on. So they can go to pamperrypr.com. There's a place there where they can hit the contact form, send me a message there. They can explore the services. They'll see Speakers Magazine on the cover if they just want to get there first. That might be the first place to really get my attention is to get in the Speakers Magazine. And there's also quick media coverage if they really want. Right now, we're doing some things for Juneteenth in terms with blacknews.com. So, yeah, the main thing is just reach out. Reach out. I always tell people, I said, you could Google me, you can go to my website, but everything is really on my website. And sign up when they go there. There's a readiness quiz there. I always let people assess themselves. How ready are you for PR? It's just 10 questions. Most people think they're more ready than they really are. Just assess yourself. I didn't say it, you said it. So, out of 10, if you get 5, then you got a long way to go. If you get 10 out of 10, you're good. You should be Beyonce of speaking. But so go to pamperrypr.com, take the quiz for free, and just kind of see where you need to improve in terms of what you need to do in terms to get ready for major PR. Get ready for that Tamron Hall, Sherry Shepherd, which I've had people on Oprah and Essence, and depending on where people are, I can put them in those spots, but you've got to take the baby steps in order to get there.
Sounds good. Well, I'll let them follow it with you so that they can speak, sell, and shine and reach their full potential. So thanks again. I'm always appreciative of the work that you do with Speakers Magazine. Her coaching works. If you go back and you listen to some of my old interviews versus my newer interviews with Pam, or even this one, she will be on you about your filler words and all those things. She will send the messages in the chat. I mean, it's real. I got better. She will send you in the chat, hey, stop saying that. And I'm like, I can't look down and read the message.
Rod, I love you. I love you. So if I tell you something, it's because I love you. I don't let people go. What the lady said, I don't let you go out there with your slip hanging, right? So it's like, I'm just trying to help people.
Look, if I didn't appreciate it, I wouldn't invite you on. I mean, I know what's needed. I see the potential in a lot of speakers, but we don't do what you do. So you're good at what you do. So I let you come on and offer that help, because that's not our space. So again, thank you. And
thank you.
Let's keep it going. All right.
Thank you.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Alrighty. Take care. God bless.